Welcome back to the Muslim Men Unfiltered. In today's episode, we're tackling something that every brother has thought about: strength. We're talking about strength that's mental, emotional, and spiritual, the kind that defines who you are as a Muslim man. Society often makes it seem like strength is all about physical, gym culture, influences, even sports heroes. But we know that real strength isn't what you can just lift in the gym. It's how you carry yourself when life tests you. We went deep into this, from the Sahaba at Badr to modern examples like Terry Crews, to how addictions like pornography expose the cracks in what we think is strength. We also unpacked marriage, stress, and the challenges Muslim men face today, and why your iman and resilience matter more than anything else. If you've ever wondered what it really means to be strong, not just in the body, but in the mind and soul, then this episode is for you. So make sure you check out episode 3 of Muslim Men Unfiltered, available on YouTube, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. I'm Malik, and here I'm joined with Noman as always, Sun, aka Sunna Strength. So today we wanted to kind of talk about, the concept of, strength. And like, would you say in recent times, like physical strength has been probably the one that's been highlighted the most, emphasized the most? A man that's physically strong, like everything else
I
is
think,
also
yeah.
strong? Or
I mean,
how
we're
would
at a
you?
point um, where, especially in the Muslim space, it's huge.
Okay.
Everyone's a social media influencer. Everyone's a bodybuilder. Everyone's an online PT. No matter who it is. Like from my own town, I've bumped into 4 guys. Oh my God, bro, you do Instagram now? How do I also start teaching people how to coach? But first is first, get in shape. And they're like, yeah, but I have this knowledge that I can teach. I'm like, "Bro, work on yourself first. Everyone's trying to be a PT. Everyone's trying to like teach other men how to be men. That's the funny thing. I mean, we're kind of doing it here as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah. But when it comes to physical strength, I think we're in that era. This is the generation where physical transformation is the biggest. What's the word? Every single generation is defined by one form of activity, sport. We are the, for better or for worse, the body transformation era, or
Mm,
even spiritual revival. But I don't think we've gotten there yet. I thought post COVID, that's what we were. That's where we would be, where everyone gets depressed and they're trying to find God again. But
mm-hmm,
instead, we've got people who are more unconfident and have more body dysmorphia than ever. So everyone's
mm,
trying to improve their physique, and I do love that in one way, because if you're gonna focus on anything, why not physical health? You know, like that's an
mm,
amazing global phenomenon that you have a guy in Africa who's making TikToks about doing gym stuff, like with some random water barrels, and you have a guy in Gaza right now who I follow, and he's amazing, and he posts his daily workouts in the rubble. It's called Fitness in the Rubble.
subhanallah. That's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
amazing.
Mm,
And
yeah.
he's gone from that to post to having the interviews with Jeff Nippard. He's done an interview with Bradley Martin. He's done an interview now with the Sunnah guy. Yesterday, it's finished. It's amazing.
All right, I know this one guy. I'm gonna pretend like I know who the other guys are. I'd
Yeah,
assume they're big fitness guys in the fitness
huge.
space. Yeah. All right. Look, obviously, like physical strength, fitness. I think it's obviously important. Like, I would never go and say like that's not important. Like, I'd be lying because I've always like been into sports, always looked up to like athletes and things like that. So I always like, for me, if I'm not like being able to perform at a certain level, don't I don't feel like whole completely. So absolutely, it should be emphasized. Perhaps maybe more so in like in this current times, it's highlighted even more because they kind of tie it together with like overall like men have lost their way, um as like kind of females have been kind of platformed to kind of excel in many different areas, like men are kind of being forgotten about. And so there's like a kind of overcompensation on that side. um Especially growing up like in the 90s and things like that, like there was obviously a lot of action hero movies, especially in like the early mid 90s. You got like professional wrestling, so it was very like that was normal. Like, and obviously you got athletes and everything like that. So it was generally like it was part of the normal psyche. So I don't know if like maybe things changed, um, and now it's and now it's like everything's kind of connected. It's maybe you can speak more about this in the kind of the Muslim space. Like I see obviously like with Habib's rise, UFC. I feel like that might have been like a big moment that shifted because now I see like every kind of like massager that I go to, there's like a youth program. There's always like MMA wrestling, but it's probably not just like Muslim. Like I think it's just like globally, like mixed martial arts. That's been seen as like the apex of like kind of masculinity, or kind of training physically or something like that. Before you used to
That's a
just be
huge
gym
point.
guys. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, that you just reminded me yesterday of a post that in this case, yeah, I don't mind saying his name. It was Gabriel Al Romani doing the post yesterday,
Mm,
and it was of Hamza Chimaev, the UFC fighter,
yeah.
going to, I believe it was a mosque, and they told him to sign a poster of a hadith. And he was like, I can't, I'll sign the bottom because the Prophet's name is there. So I'll sign the bottom of the poster. And
Mm,
everyone's like, wow, mashallah, all this and that. But here's the thing, what he said is like, even a 5-year-old knows that. It just looks really good. And ulama teach this stuff. Our scholars are way more knowledgeable, mashallah. But
mm,
people value him. Why? Because he has strength. Physical strength is valued so much more, especially since it brings fame and it brings what's called reputation. Because a good reputation, especially within the Muslim community, it brings fear to enemies. So he will always be respected. And if he has good character, it's like he's the guy. He's the guy you go to, even though you have scholars who are going to teach you, you know, Islam, who are going to teach you haqq. Everyone values strength, and fighting is literally you dominating over someone else with your skill, technique, and power. So they are always going to be people that you're going to respect and look up to more. In a physical attraction wise, men want to be that because it's powerful. It's domination. Every guy wants to be that guy.
mm,
Women want that guy, whether they say it or not. They will tell
mm,
their husbands, look at that guy. Even if they don't like fighting, they want their son to become like that. They want their husband to be dominating, to be a protector. I don't even mean it in a lustful way, like women are chasing after that guy, but they respect that guy and they feel safe around that guy if he's a Muslim with good character as well. So
mm,
everyone wants to be that guy. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's now becoming too much of an extreme sometimes, though. Sometimes, where this is the guy where if you see Habib in some of his talks, people are asking for life advice, Islamic advice in his
mm,
thing. And one thing I love about him, and mashallah, he even says, I'm not a scholar. He even, the people ask him, like, what's the best thing you can do as a man and all this stuff. And he says, follow the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Very simple advice, and it's perfect advice. But that's what he says, because he knows, like, his place isn't to give Islamic advice, neither is it even mine. It's just to give whatever simple pieces of dawah I can. But my specialization is fitness. That's what I'm going to stick to. But a lot of people would rather value that guy's advice than just walk into a mosque and talk to any imam would probably have 10 times the experience and knowledge than your
mm,
typical UFC fighter and bodybuilder,
mm.
but it's not valued because the
Yeah.
guy doesn't physically look like someone he wants to be. That's an important point as well. Not to say anything bad about the ulama, but there was a time when a scholar, a warrior, was the same person. That was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The guy who was gonna be a merchant tradesman. So by trade, he's a salesman. In battle, he was a warrior. He would might have been a commander or a general. At home, father and husband, very loving and soft. And in the
Mm,
mosque, he was a scholar. He was all that. But now we've separated all of them.
Yeah.
For some reason, the guy who's the ulama has to be fat and has to be lazy. The guy who's the gym bro and tough has to be stupid. The MMA fighter has to be arrogant.
Mm.
And the father has to be overweight or just really incompetent, like Homer Simpson and Family Guy. He just has to be a loser. And the wife is just depressed because of that. And as a father, he has to be aggressive for some reason.
So everyone kind
And
of
that's,
playing like characters of kind of roles. Yeah. But I can understand why, like in Habib's case, why that was such a massive moment. Um, especially say like because I became Muslim like 2020. So, but like prior to that, well, even like post 9/11, I'd imagine there would have been like like a whole identity type of crisis, right? About being proud to be Muslim during that whole media campaign, and it's obviously still going on now. And even I was a victim of that campaign, like how like you would look at or think about Muslims. So when you see someone who who's gotten the admiration of like not just Muslim, like just globally, you know,
mm,
every different demographic, every kind of age range, and you see them saying like positive things, and they're also saying positive things about how he carries himself and how he connects that to the religion. So I can see why a lot of people would have taken a lot of pride by that, even because it's public, even yeah, and then yeah, and then I know like when they say like, oh, well, they don't have that same kind of emotions and feelings for like their local mum who, is the one that's actually has a lot of responsibility, doing a lot for in the community, but they see the person on TV. But I think that's just human nature in a way as well.
mm.
That someone that has that kind of global reach and admiration, it's gonna affect the, whoever that kid might be or whoever that adult is compared to the average person. That's just yeah, human nature, man. Like everyone has like people that they look up to growing up, and it's generally the person on television, right? Like
Yeah.
in a way, and it could be a sad thing or a bad thing a lot of the times. Yeah, I think that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
But with Habib, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
Oh yeah,
He's the
obviously yes.
perfect guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
he was the guy who, Allah did something special because he brought him against Conor McGregor, the polar opposite of what we would want our children to
absolutely.
be. So it was fantastic. He even had the
Yeah,
Irish against Conor for a while.
yeah, and
And now they're
now
all against him
the,
because he's not with Palestine. He's
yeah,
just a
Habib took
drunk
his
dude.
fans as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, not specifically
Yeah.
directly talking about Habib. We're just talking about the
Yeah, I know what I mean.
general,
Yeah.
yeah, the general, like just to clarify for people, just a general thing like that. The person that you only see for those, that little clip or whatever, and then they have such a large impact upon you. And I can see why people like. There's obviously a lot of positives. We spoke about those positives, like kind of gave people a kind of made them make them a bit more firmer in their beliefs, a bit more proud about their identity being a Muslim, all of those type of things, which obviously are good things. But then I see like other people like where it could go the other way. Because I remember after I became Muslim, like all these athletes, all these basketballs, whatever like that, when I found out like, oh, this guy's Muslim too, I'm like, oh yeah, great. And then you end up like you check out like whatever their profile and you see all of this like madness, and then you're like, yeah, nah,
Mm.
like yeah, you don't want to be tying your iman to like said athlete, because if they go off the rails, like what are you going to do? You're going to tie your iman to a person. Like I can see what the dangers of that. So going back to the topic that we were kind of speak about. So strength. How do we define strength? We spoke about like maybe in this context in the time that we're in now that like maybe physical is probably the kind of apex of how you define that potentially. Maybe because it's easy because it's just like externally very observable. This person's in shape and things like that, and the person that like looks like forget even fitness for a second. The person just looks well groomed and kind of put together. You automatically assume every aspect of their life is kind of put together as well. Whereas if you see someone that's a little bit disheveled, you automatically assume like, okay, maybe there's other things that kind of like probably left to be desired as well. And that can mask a lot of things. But how many times do we see like the person who externally looks great, in shape and everything like that, but they have like a lot of internal and emotional like traumas and issues. But they've just hit it very well. And especially in like social media age, we're pretty much trained and programmed to only like show like the good parts.
Mhm.
Like there's no incentive to kind of give a bit more of a reality check on things, so you don't come across looking a bit more holy than thou. Um, so do you see that? Do you observe that? And
Dude, that second one you said, where he's strong and online his life is perfect. That's the most common thing you'll find, and in person he has so many problems. Because the truth is, like, who doesn't have problems? I'm
mm,
not here to talk about whatever hardship that happened this morning. That's not. Yeah, so everyone has issues, but social media has made it seem like people have the perfect life and the dream life that you want. And the only way you're going to survive in social media is if you believe that every person is suffering in some way. Even that guy who has 2 million followers and is making 1.2 million a year, he probably has a harder life than you, even if you're like broke. Maybe. If you think about it that way, you'd probably survive more. But when it comes to like strength, how would I define it, as you said before? The first thing I think, yeah, physical. It just comes to your head. When you say define strength, I imagine myself shoulder pressing something. It just came to my head. Yeah, immediately. Yeah, it's the first thing that comes to your head. Or throwing someone. Yeah.
mm, yeah,
But I think I like Google's definition. As soon as you said it, I tapped it up. There's two definitions. The first one is
Shake
the
Google,
quality,
take it away.
yeah, the quality or state of being physically strong. But I
Mm,
think the second one is perfect because strength, like we said before, is strength of character, mental resilience, and physical strength.
mm,
The capacity of an object or substance to withstand great force or pressure. I like that.
yeah,
And that's talking about an object, but I think that's a good way to describe a human strength as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Resilience.
yeah. And when you mentioned that, I was thinking actually about like like emotional strength, like mental strength. Because like as you kind of get older, like you start seeing like the world's kind of like being unmasked to you, and you kind of go out of that, you know, everyone's singing kumbaya and everything's like it's just perfect and there's gonna be pure justice. Like as we can see, you know, with recent events and anyone that like into history, like it's just like there's just been a lot of bloodshed. There's been a lot of, you know, calamities and wars and oppression, and that's just how this world been, right? And we know that this is the dunya, and you know, and this type of things that happen here. It's not a perfect world. So the people that are able to kind of like not shy away from it, and still hold their emotions in check. No, I'm not talking about like, you know, kind of detaching yourself from certain emotions. They're like, so like I don't want to feel anything, so I'm just gonna make myself numb to this, or I'm gonna ignore this exists. But like they know, they acknowledge that this is what it is, and but it doesn't kill their iman. It doesn't kill their will to persevere. It doesn't kill their kindness, their generosity. It doesn't make them so hardened that they just kind of their hearts harden as well, because that's just the only way that they can deal with um, all the kind of type of events that they've gone through. And
Mm.
yeah, that's like for me, like growing up in the '90s, like pro wrestling was like WWF, WWE, like these were like big things, man. Like I don't know, I'd imagine it's just global, right? Because these guys they go to like pretty much every country now, even Muslim countries,
Yeah.
everything. Um, but it's just interesting hearing like the interviews and getting an insight into the way like what they were going through, um, like the drug addiction and you know the steroid use, all of the kind of traumatic things that they had to go through. They're on the road 300 days of the year, but we only just see them doing all the cool stunts, right? And those and what we thought was just so awesome, but you never got to understand, or they weren't allowed to really kind of reveal, because it's such a, obviously part of the whole magic of the whole thing is that like they're just playing characters and you only see them in character. And you see like all of the human kind of tragedy they had to face as well. But externally, they're that massive strong dude that's like the hero of all these people, kids, whatever like that. So my point, the reason I bring that up is like maybe that doesn't get emphasized enough, right? Because how many people do we see externally? They look like everything's in check, but internally, like they're a wreck. And just tying it into like what I specialize in porn recovery. You see like famous actors like Terry Crews, who was very public and very raw about his addiction, and like that's someone that was like by most people's standards, like that guy's in shape. He looks physically strong. He's done well for himself, successful in movies from a junior point of view. But behind all of that, like he was massively addicted to pornography. The point was going to cost his marriage, and he tied it back. Like he did, like he was very vulnerable, and I commend him for that because he put it on the map. When people of that fame, they put an issue on the map, like it just gets more traction, which is generally a good thing, ultimately a good thing. And yeah, and he spoke about how that almost destroyed his marriage, and he was just completely out of control. Like he lost complete control of it. I mean, he tied it back to like a childhood event when his I believe it was his mother. He said that that sexually abused him. So yeah, externally, like we're looking at these people, like everyone's like they're physically great, everything looks externally amazing, but internally could be a lot different.
I mean, how would you rank them? You got, even though they all basically come together: physical strength, mental strength, and then I wouldn't say spiritual strength. Let's say strength of character, but then that is mental. Which one would you rank in importance?
So what are the options?
Physical strength, mental strength, strength of character. Which can be mental strength. Let's say
strength
spiritual
of character. I mean, yeah. What do you mean by strength of character? I mean, that sounds like that has to go number one. Just
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, then you can argue like, well, if they have emotional strength, mental strength, then that will make them easier to kind of have strength of character, and then which are all kind of prerequisites to physical strength. But then you see like, especially I remember like a lot of the common messaging in the porn recovery space was just get in the like push ups, sit ups, get physically active and strong, like which is like a good, definitely a good like kind of ingredient, a strong ingredient. But I wouldn't put that as like the ultimate kind of number one, because when you investigate it further, like in Terry Crews' case, obviously he already had the physical thing down pat, but it was the unresolved kind of emotional trauma that was the trigger, that was the result of him relapsing and causing the cycle of addiction to occur in his life. There was no physical element for him. So I guess and that's really emphasized in the porn recovery space. Like I remember like the thumbnails for all the kind of porn recovery YouTube videos would be like it'll be a picture of the guy when he was like maybe less physically in shape, and then or maybe he like had a light bit, and then like the second picture would be of him looking stronger, looking like had maybe a fuller, like he was just stronger looking. And that was like, so pretty much pinning it to your physical is that's the difference between success and failure in porn recovery addiction. We're just kind of putting out like a false kind of messaging, but it was the marketing that kind of, I guess, worked, and that at that time. But cases like Terry Crews, I think, kind of just dispels that myth.
Oh, because he was already a fit guy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's just kind of broaden out the conversation, and kind of open the doors for a more of a, like a holistic approach to resolve, like kind of resolving like issues like that addiction, like porn recovery. Because ultimately, because even though like a recent client I had, he was very physically in shape, he was very active, so we didn't need to even kind of, you know, put that on the agenda because you're already taking care of that. So we can just dive into, you know, the stuff that needs attention. Not downplaying like its importance. I'm, you know, big on fitness, but it can't be at the expense of the rest of the holistic solution being put in place.
I think I think it's interesting, right? Because the guy that you would assume is the porn addict is like your typical weeb or nerd mindset, where he's probably locked in his house alone. He probably has no friends, and he's just watching all this stuff to deal with whatever stress, trauma, loneliness he has, and he's addicted. So for that guy, you would say, "Hey, get up, go to the gym, make some friends, get out of your house, get get in shape while you're working on your trauma. But first things first, get some physical fitness in to cure your addiction." But like you said, these guys that like Terry Crews, already in shape, actually not just in shape, very well known, has a lot of friends, is a great to an extent extrovert, but he's addicted.
Hmm.
So for him, I would say, as you said, it's more of an emotional and mental struggle, and he has to deal with past trauma. It's just the interesting thing is that typical stereotypical nerd. I think the physical fitness will, to an extent, help him more drastically than the guy who is already in shape. Because all you're going to tell that guy to do is keep doing what he's already doing.
Exactly.
And but that's interesting though. Why do you think that both sides? I have my assumptions, but why do you think both sides need the opposite form of therapy?
Yeah, but it's. I'm glad that you asked that because I guess in the kind of fitness space, maybe I don't know, I don't know. Maybe there's other better terminologies that you might come to mind, but say like in the I don't know. It feels a bit embarrassing even saying these terms, like say manosphere, kind
Uh,
of men self development space, that type of thing. And it's off the back of like obviously many decades of kind of programming through, you know, 80s 90s kind of like action hero movie heroes, action movie heroes, and that type of thing, like that the man, the archetype of strength, manhood, masculinity is the one that's physically strong. He's always certain in what decisions he makes. He's not emotionally vulnerable. He doesn't deal with like emotions. He doesn't deal with those feelings of sadness, loneliness. Doesn't show kind of like never obviously would cry or would ever do these type of things. So when that's the tight the kind of tight so you're eliminating a lot of parts of a human being when that person is forced to cut out all of these emotions, which are obviously human emotions that Allah has put in us, and then you're saying that they can only feel these emotions, demonstrate these emotions, and act only in these ways. Then that then you're taking a lot of the kind of tools at their disposal to deal with, you know, life's inevitable, you know, difficulties, you know, through loss of wealth, loss of job, loss of family members, or like, so you're telling me when those events happen, I can't I can't acknowledge it and kind of process it. I just need to just move on and lift dumbbells. Like if that's the only kind of options that are given, then of course we're gonna have people that are out of whack, and you know they're just kind of concentrating on that. But when things go like haywire, which you know this is the dunya, right? Things are gonna happen that's not expected. Then they don't know how to deal with it, and then of course they're just gonna go to vices that's readily available to kind of just numb those emotions, because they're numbing those emotions because they've never been trained in how to deal with them or to even acknowledge them or to even make it okay to even feel those emotions. And then you're just kind of setting up you know men for failure in in modern age. And this overcorrection or kind of redefining, like, you know, grabbing back our masculinity, um, which, you know, generally, like, they're all positive things in that message, right? We don't just throw it all out, but it, like, we don't want it to be at the expense of making someone emotionally mature to be able to handle those things, because that's what they did. Like, when I was giving you the examples of those, like, you know, like pro wrestlers, they'll, you know, it'd be painkillers, drug abuse, you know, womanizing, alcohol, all those type of things. You're just kind of making a slippery slope to use vices rather than dealing with the trauma at hand. And this and the further we go down this road, I feel like the further away we go from the example of what a man is for every Muslim, is Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Sorry.
to the point, like, when you feel like, if you were to, like, read, if Imam was to read out these hadiths, and he didn't, and if he wasn't to say who was it about, you'd already be thinking, like, oh, this guy's a bit, oh man, like,
Yeah.
what's this, man? This isn't strength or whatever. And then, like, and then they'll mention it, or and then they're like, oh, but that's
Yeah.
that's the kind of road that we've kind of been led on.
I think there's a good point. With addiction, I think it's actually very different. When it comes to curing an addiction and curing depression. And basically, there's different forms of stress or cortisol relief, and one that we're starting to understand better now, and especially men, is therapy, speaking. And I think the word therapy is scary because it makes you vulnerable. Just that word means I'm going to be vulnerable to someone. But what it essentially means is talking about your problem. It could just be your friend. I recommend not just a friend. You should also have someone who's a bit wiser, maybe a few gray hairs in the beard, or has experience, and talking to them because they can actually give you active solutions. A friend is more like someone to lean on. He can't really give you any other advice. He can just support you, and then you need someone to give you active solutions. So that could be the counselor, the therapist, the elder, whatever. But that's one type of release. But second would be like psychosomatic release, which is doing physical activity to release cortisol and trauma. So when someone's depressed or someone feels lack of worth, I feel like the gym has become such a huge place for people to change their lives, especially in the modern day, because they feel it. When you're lifting a dumbbell, when you're pushing, you're actually releasing cortisol. You're actually letting out stress. Like your sweat glands will sweat it out. That's why there's a study where and it's actually not even a study, now it's a proven fact, that when you're around people who are high stress, you get stressful. Like, have you ever felt you've walked into a room where people are panicking or there's a lot of stress, especially in an office environment, you're stressed.
Absolutely.
You're like,
Yeah.
what? You might have had a
Yeah.
great day and you might have come in with like buns and pastries for everyone for breakfast on the first day of work, and you're like, everything's chaos. What just happened? I got everyone gifts, but now you're stressed.
Yeah.
Sometimes just by seeing them, because cortisol literally leaks out of us. Like you will experience it. And there's another thing where, and it happens with women. Women have high levels of estrogen and all that, and they're more hormonal, essentially. So if a group of women end up living together, their periods will synchronize. Almost always. Just
Wow.
because they were together, yeah.
I'm
And I
learning
was
this.
like, yeah. And that's the amazing thing about like hormones, but also how it affects our physical state, not just our emotional state. I think with a guy, women too actually, but with men more because we are more physically active. Like there was this random study that Jordan Peterson, love him or hate him now, he does know what he's talking about psychologically. And back then, he mentioned,
Yeah.
he mentioned the study where school is not designed for boys. Women will always, in general, even if you believe men are smarter or whatever, women will always do better in a school setting because classroom settings, studying is very tailored towards a woman's mindset. That's why when you actually put women in like not labor force, but like a warehouse kind of, when you have a line of stuff coming, simple practical labor stuff, women outdo men because they can sit and do monotone work, boring work continuously, non-stop. And when you think about it, that's kind of what a mother does. She does the same thing on repeat every single day. The kid is screaming, whining, she's just on it. She's on it. So women handle that better than men. So the classroom setting is horrible because the boys get more agitated and they need to play. So he advised that we should change the whole system for boys to go out and get more running time, injure themselves, hurt themselves, fight. Not like bleed, but fight and build connections through physical touch and life experience more than girls because they need that. So then they grow up in this tight setting in the classroom and you're just not normal. The ones who really enjoy studying or excel, they will excel, but they would have done better if they went out and did all these other traditional male stuff. And I was like, yes, because I feel that in the gym. When I was going through my worst periods every time, if I just go in and even at home, if I do some push ups, it's like stress is literally relieving out myself. But you mentioned something before about addiction, where it's not enough and the strong guy still has problems. 100% agree that with addiction, it's completely different, especially porn addiction, because it literally rewires your brain. And with that, I always advise the guy to get in physical shape if he's not already in physical shape, because if he's not, he can go through that process of relieving stress and finding a new outlet, let's say, to deal with whatever he's going through. But if his mind doesn't fix, it won't work. So I think that's where people get confused, because porn addiction is like the worst addiction, that and drugs, because they rewire your brain.
Yeah,
Without
absolutely.
talking about it and without having a coach who knows the trigger points and how to deal with them, it's never going to work. Because if anything, your testosterone increases when you're at the gym, when you're working out. Testosterone increases, libido increases, and then you have even more of a desire to go. That's a huge thing that what I don't like is I see a lot of guys who this is when you know they don't really know what they're talking about, but they're just fit and they give advice online where it says, you have all this extra testosterone, go and burn it. First of all, you can't burn testosterone. It's like, it's not muscle, it's hormone. You can't burn testosterone. But like, yeah, they go burn it in the gym. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not fat. You can't burn it off.
Yeah.
Man. And then it's
Yeah.
go and work out and utilize it. I agree because at least you're using some of that energy towards something greater, something more important. But overall, the more healthier you become, especially when testosterone increases, the more desire you have. And guys would feel it on leg day. And the worst part is when you do leg day, you're physically like shattered. So if you were to approach a woman and want to be intimate with her, that's hard. Masturbation isn't hard. So you now have the desire, you're kind of stuck in that spot, but I can just do that. And that's something that after chatting to guys, because I felt it, where I have a greater desire after leg day, but physically I'm shattered. And I don't have a wife, so I can't even go up to a woman anyway. But let's say I did, right? It'd be kind of harder, but obviously it's your wife. You can just talk to her, she can help you out. But if you're just a single guy and you don't want to go out, you can just watch stuff on your phone and you can do whatever you want just by sitting there. So you don't actually have to walk towards that effort. So people are really, they really need to understand physical fitness is a way of dealing with stress, trauma, but it's not gonna fix your porn addiction. And as someone who used to believe that, like I'm glad I changed my mind because it did not help the guys that I was with, that I was training and helping, until I realized like, okay, let me sit in their brain and think about what's going on with them. I read more studies on it, and then I thought about myself. I'm like, wait, but I do feel it. I'm just lucky I don't already have an addiction, or I'm pretty sure I would do all the stuff they're doing. I would have done the same thing. I would have fallen back into the sin. I would have watched 100 videos that day. But then I have to say, okay, what did I do in that moment? Well, I literally, when I felt it, I would get up and go sit next to my parents. Not everyone is lucky to do that, or I would remove myself from the environment, but that feeling doesn't go away. You have to have mental fortitude. And for those guys who have already addicted, you need to go to a counselor or something, because right now what you're doing isn't enough. Those trigger points will always be there.
And yeah, and over obviously a longer time horizon, like you need to be pro marriage, right? You need to have positive
Yeah.
thinking about marriage, and because you need to have that door open. Whilst you might be maybe not in a position today for A, B, C, but that door needs to be open. You can't fall into the trap of, the thinking that like all women are gonna, they're all feminists. Marriage is gonna lead to divorce, and me being kind of robbed financially, and like, because that thinking is not going to help you in your porn recovery at all. Like, yeah, and I
Oh,
didn't,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably gonna segue into like a whole different
Yeah.
conversation, but I just felt like it was important to mention it here. Um, and so we spoke about physical strength. We spoke about many different types of strength. One thing that's super important in this day and age is like cognitive strength. And I remember listening to this, like he's like a productivity guru, and he's a does many different things. He's a professor as well. Um, he's when he said that, like, we speak like everyone knows physical health is important. Everyone knows that now. Like everyone knows that, they need to be moving, doing exercise, resistance training, if ideally, all that type of thing. Everyone knows that you should eat healthy, all that type of thing. But something that's not kind of emphasized is like cognitive strength. So when he said that, like, reading is like what like resistance training is to the body for the mind, that kind of changed how I kind of viewed like reading. Because, like, say like watching like all of these, just doom scrolling, like Netflix, just endless, just social media. That's like junk food for the body, but that's for the mind. Now we're kind of weak cognitively because we like don't know how to persevere with something that requires thinking or requires like challenging our mind in a different way. Like that muscle hasn't been used in a very long time. So that's why people like they can't read past like 5 pages. And that's really important because if you're weak in that aspect, then you're more inclined to get like to want like cognitive sugar rushes, and you're gonna want something that just kind of like it's like easy and you get a hit. So like TikTok videos and this type of thing, and then you match that up with, okay, you're still in the depths of like you got a porn addiction. It's become like your coping mechanism. It's become your kind of vice for when you feel discomfort, because you've trained your mind to kind of like anytime you feel some type of mental or emotional discomfort, you go to that well. Whereas I feel like if you're training yourself like cognitively to be able um, to deal with like hard doing harder things, like maybe it's like reading a book that maybe you can't even read like 5 pages without being like your mind is like melted, or you're just like, oh man, just make it stop. I just want to like watch something easy. I feel like there's a correlation in between those two things. It's like escaping to the most easiest kind of avenue when something is hard is is the kind of is the slippery slope to just going back to whatever that coping mechanism is. And it could be, well, obviously we're talking about porn addiction here, but I know like um maybe you don't want to do something challenging, right? Like you got a challenging task. Maybe you have to, I don't know, you're crunching numbers, you're doing your financials, tax return, or something that you don't like, and requires like a high bandwidth from you mentally. You're like, all right, but I just want to scroll on YouTube because it's easier. Like that muscle where we've just like we shy away from the difficult task to the easiest thing. That reinforces that cycle of like, okay, I don't want to deal with this deep dark thing. It's probably gonna, it's making me feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's like I have like these insecurities or these fears and doubts from wherever the origin is. All right, I'm feeling emotionally bad. Watch, let me just scroll like, I don't know, like bikini models on Instagram or something like that. And that's a slippery slope. That makes me feel better. And then next thing you know, you've acted out and you've had a relapse. Like this is typically when people start mapping out and this is why I really encourage people to map out their relapses, because to really understand it, because there is kind of like, there is gold in that, because you're getting, once you kind of solve for that equation, you're getting one step closer to figuring out what is the deeper root issue that's causing you that relapse. And just going to the gym and things like that, and just like that's your whole solution. Like that's not going to solve everything for you because
Yeah.
you haven't dig deeper. By the way, I
This
know
is interesting.
I'm not attacking physical fitness. By the way, I like physical fitness.
Yeah. No, but I'm a physical fitness coach, and I say the same thing, especially when it comes to addictions, because addiction is a very psychologically, even trauma-related, deep-rooted issue that no form of movement is just going to completely solve. It's just going to be a way for you to either stay away from it temporarily or be some form of temporary release. But you want the other release. You want what the addiction, whatever the addiction is, food, pornography, whatever, will give you. Because
Hmm.
it's a chemical thing. It's dopamine. It's a chemical thing. It's the most intoxicating thing ever. Just getting dopamine hits every
Hmm.
single time. So physical fitness is something that every human should do anyway.
Hmm.
And especially if you're addicted to something, maybe you want to do a bit more, but it's not going to solve the root issue.
Hmm.
After years of now speaking to guys and chatting to them, I understand that it was wrong of it was actually wrong of me before. I would say I've made a mistake before with clients
Hmm.
telling them that what's it called, pattern up, lockdown, train harder. It wasn't right. It doesn't work. They have to
Hmm.
seek help.
Yeah.
But going to your point, how do you build that resilience? Because I think that's like the hardest thing you can possibly do.
That
Because
yeah.
you said map it out, right? But
So
even
I
then,
was
it's
talking
like,
about I was talking about their kind of relapse because I know, like, from what I've kind of seen and like, because you sit in all of these kind of, you be part of all of these porn recovery groups, like Muslim porn recovery groups, and every time someone has a relapse, it's just crying emojis and it's just like,
what?
it's just like I get like it's obviously I'm not condoning it, or I'm not encouraging it, but like you kind of declaring it and everyone's just like, hey, it's okay, blah blah blah, and then you're saying like, oh, this is my qadr or whatever excuse you're coming up with, like
Ooh,
having like
that's dangerous
for
stuff.
instance, yeah, it is very dangerous. It's like having the kind of emotional kind of stability to like obviously you make tall, you take the right steps, but like you need the poise to kind of analyze it, almost like with a lens of like maybe like reducing your kind of emotional kind of trauma, because a lot of people just like they'll act out, kind of freak out, and then just like not learn anything from it, understand it, and then just move on, and until they go on another streak and then relapse again, have their kind of emotional like have their emotional spaz out on a group forum or something like that, and they're just like they're not getting any better. They're just kind of recycling, and they're not understanding that going deeper into those things. That's just kind of what I've observed. Sorry, I forgot what your question was.
Yeah. So, because thing is, right, porn addiction that's related to just sexual desire. That's natural. So the problem is, you're always gonna want that. You might even want it the next day, every single day.
Hmm.
That desire. So because it's so natural, how do you actually build up self-control, self-resilience to stay away from looking at that thing that you shouldn't be doing to,
Hmm.
especially like touching yourself? Because when I really think about it, everyone gets that. How do you help someone who's addicted to stay away from it?
Yeah, so there's nothing natural about like porn, like like pornography, because it's all
Yeah,
happening
of course,
like
yeah.
it's happening on a pixelated screen. It's a
Mm.
performance. It's scripted. Like maybe there's obviously it's not only manufactured by now. It's just like even amateur stuff, but we didn't even go to the details of the many different kind of styles and everything like that. Um, but like first of all, like they need to like ultimately they need to have a positive view of marriage because that's the long term. There's obviously a lot of things they need to do.
Mm.
There's a lot of initial steps they need to do. I know we're kind of jumping into kind of it's the we're talking about the kind of fitra, like in our fitra need to want to be with the opposite gender. So
Mm.
there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen before we kind of like we get to that conversation. Because there's a lot
Okay.
of stuff that's already they can just remove, and then they'll kind of stop the acting out. Like first of all, there's sometimes I feel like there's for with certain clients there's a, there's a dual addiction because the accessibility is the number one like issue, right? So there's like a phone addiction in that
Oh.
as well, and then when you're pairing because like how do they view it? Typically it's the phone, right? So now you have a porn addiction, and then you have like a almost like an addiction like connection to the device, and now you're just like you've combined these two forces together, and then you're also using it in places and times and locations, and when you're kind of emotionally kind of you're emotionally like in a vulnerable situation, well of course you're going to repeat, you're going to relapse because you're in this emotional state, um, and you've got the device and you have the location where you always kind of act out when all of these boxes are ticked. It's like, of course, it's going to happen, right? And then when they have their phones in their bedroom in the evening, any spark, like even just by having the phone in the bedroom is enough for them to ultimately do it. Even if it's like not something that they consciously thought about, it's an addiction, right? So you've
Mm.
given them. It's like giving a like a you give there's a heroin addict and you're giving him the heroin and the needle, um, and you're giving him private space, and then
Okay.
what? And then like you said, with in that scenario, I wouldn't be I wouldn't start with the conversation of like, yeah, it's like it's natural to want to like feel like a high, like have a positive emotion, like to feel happy because the heroin makes him happy. I don't it's like I wouldn't jump to that because there's just so many things that needs to be done in order for them to even have sustained success. And also like when we bring up that topic, it brings me back to another kind of myth that's like put everywhere, and it's probably more so among single men because married men know like there's a lot of married men who are addicted to pornography, and there's many wives who are on forums and things like that talking about that. And when you go to these actually porn recovery groups, like man, some of these like married people outnumber single people. And I think it is something maybe like single people like they think like, okay, once I have my wife, like everything's sorted. But you've been conditioning yourself to online women, right? That
Mm.
artificial, like it's manufactured, and now like some people are not even into like humans doing it, right? They got like animation
Oh.
and things like that, or AI or whatever.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
so
You
your
can
app, so
design a
your
woman.
normal sister is not going to give you the same if you've been programmed to get like model like manufactured like to do everything look like how you want it, like not limited to the bounds of physical laws. Now you think like getting married to your nice sister is gonna like, well, like, okay, I'm just gonna move on and focus on you. Like that doesn't work like that.
Mm.
And a lot of people like they think like just marriage will solve everything, but how many married people are addicted? Like a lot of these porn recovery services, they have more married people than single people, and this is a prevailing myth. So no, if you have bad habits, you you know you don't take care of yourself physically. You're in a poor kind of emotional state. You don't know how to deal with like the emotional turbulence, and you have poor tech device habits and phones, and keep your phone in the bedroom at night when no one's around, and the addiction will always win. It doesn't matter if you're married or
That,
not in
mm,
that scenario. But
yeah,
I'm pro
I understand
marriage. I'm
perspective.
pro marriage, but
Yeah.
there's too many single brothers that just think like, hey man, a nikah will just solve every issue. Unfortunately, that's that's not that simple.
Oh, no, okay. When you put it like that, that makes a lot more sense because
Yeah.
when I mentioned it, well, it's a natural urge. Like, how do you fight it? But then
Yeah.
again, some people do get the natural urge and they have a wife. and they still can't fight
Exactly.
it. So when you put it like that, I get what you mean now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah. When
And
you listen to married,
also,
sorry, go
mhm.
ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, for the people watching, when he was saying marrying your normal sister, he doesn't mean your sister. He means Muslim sister. I mean another Muslim. Yeah.
Yes. If you're
Yeah.
listening to Muslim Men Unfiltered,
Yeah.
that's presumed, but maybe you're not. You don't
Yeah.
know. Now you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it is especially like because yeah, we like being single men will have these like kind of stereotypes that like yeah, man, like married people don't have any kind of issues. Like yeah, like all your sexual needs are just going to be all sweet and everything like that. That's and then you hear from these married porn addicts, and then they say that their wife was the cause, the trigger for them to watch pornography because they got into like a fight. Then
Mm.
you're like, okay, yeah, that's there's a prevailing myth out there that's still going around that people who have partners they don't have any issues sexually with addiction, things like that. No, this is something that's been going on. They've been doing for decades. The technology is getting more advanced. Like it's yeah, it's artificial world versus like real life, and these are two different things. So if you have an artificial like addiction point, like a person, real life person is not gonna automatically like just fix all of that because you've been
Mm.
wired to like be stimulated by something that doesn't have a scent, doesn't have a smell, doesn't have a touch. There's no,
Wow. Yeah.
there's it's and you're doing it to your own rhythm. You're not accounting for another person. You're not exchanging emotions. You don't even know how to deal with their physical presence. Like maybe eye contact will freak you out. This is the level, right? And
So,
some people might
how
prefer.
long?
Hmm?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go
Go
ahead.
for it. I was just gonna say, how long with a person? Because some people are addicted for a few months, some people a few years.
Hmm.
How long do you think on average it would take a person to be able to be physically intimate with another person? Because some people, like you said, they're stuck to the screen. They might sit with their wife and then not get turned on. So how long do you think that process would take to reset their mind?
Yeah, man, that's deep. I think that's definitely
Mm.
horses for courses. I don't know if you guys got that saying. I was speaking to this American guys who are like, yeah, we don't have that. We don't say horse. We don't have. I'm like, okay, cool.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Oh, okay, cool. Like that's like yeah, each person's on their own kind of. It's like each person's different, and their situation is different, and their severity is different as well. Um, so yeah, that it varies a lot. It depends on like how long they've been doing it, like how deep they're into, like how deep it is, um, where they are, kind of like mentally, emotionally. Like there's a lot of different factors, but certainly for some people, it's not. It wouldn't take as long, but for some others, like yeah, man, like we need to do a whole reframe on so many different things. Um, but
Okay,
yeah,
but example, guy's getting married. He
mm,
comes to you. I'm getting married in 1 week, but it's just in this week I've had so much anxiety because that was me. I had an addiction. I feel like I fixed the addiction, but I
yeah,
don't know whether I'm going to be able to perform on the wedding night because I train people for their wedding night, physical fitness. We get them in the right mind space.
yeah,
But then what would I do if a guy comes and says, I was a porn addict and now I don't know whether I'm going to perform on the first night? And of course, just the anxiety from that alone could be why they fail on the first night. You might not even be they have a problem.
yeah,
So how would you
exactly.
deal with that?
Yeah, I think someone that doesn't have any issues with porn addiction would like they could kind of succumb to performance anxiety, and it's mental, right? At that stage, it's
Yeah.
mental, and yeah. But if they've, I'm just assuming that the fact that they've taken that step, that they've obviously, um, they value like a real life partner. They've been able to demonstrate to themselves that they're, able to stay clean for, a period of time. And for them, like, they've got things in place that those, if they do, get emotionally off tilt, whatever like that, that they can manage themselves. And they just know that, this is a fitra thing now. Like a marriage is going to be the thing it's going to be my solution long term, because I just have an innate need to want to be intimate, which is perfectly normal. Like this is a natural feeling, right? That Allah's put into us, and He's done that through the halal means. But if you're in a place where you're constantly relapsing multiple times a day, or you're having like you can't deal with any type of turbulence in your life, and you just resort to that as a default, and that's just your weekly life, daily life, then yeah, I would say like, yeah, maybe marriage is probably not an option for you, because you got a lot of things to kind of unpack. And if you take that type of momentum into your marriage, then you might be causing worse problems for yourself and now another person in that situation. But I think yeah, it's hard. I think most people know when they're when they're ready. But I'm glad that we're talking about this, because there's also brothers who, after a sustained period of time, whatever like that, they get into this false sense of security that they don't need marriage. Like, yeah, I figured it out. You know what I mean? Like ultimately, at some point, you have this need to express it, right? And so you need. That's why I always say you need to be pro marriage mentality. And so if you're able and willing, and there's not, like, you should seek it. And at that point, if that brother slips up, then he's just like, you've kind of just set that up yourself, because you fell into this like false, like, we know what the encouragement is to get married if you're able to. So that's a different scenario. Brothers like done well, sustained period, blah blah blah, and then falls into a sense of like arrogance, like I'm cool, I don't need it, blah blah blah. And then you adopt like this negative view about women, and start this fear of like marriage deep. Then you're doing well, you're doing all the right things that will help someone recover from addiction, but you're setting yourself up for long term, because I'm all about like long term recovery, like permanent. And so that requires like you to have a pro view of marriage eventually. So to just cut yourself off completely and just be like, then what are you going to do, right? Because mentally you need to know that eventually you will have a wife to be able to share these moments with, right? If you cut that off from yourself, then you're just kind of setting yourself up for failure eventually.
I mean, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think, especially as a Muslim, our entire religion is about resilience and self-control. Like from the very first get-go, the first thing about intimacy is lower your gaze and guard your private parts. Like the very first thing we're told before you even get married: lower your gaze, guard your private parts, control yourself, control your eyes, control your hands, even food. Eat. Well, Allah says eat, but do not eat in excess, for He does not like those who commit excess. Even food, moderation. Throughout our entire religion is just about control, self-control. Not in a way to punish us, but because when you finally get the thing that's halal, it's more rewarding. Because I think most of it is because it's, like you said, it's so accessible, haram, that a time will come when being a Muslim, holding on to religion, is like holding on to burning coal. Definitely, I feel that. I definitely feel that for sure right now in the times that we live in. It feels impossible to do what's halal. And families don't make it any easier if you grew up in a weird culture as well. So environment is a huge thing. A huge thing. Just recently, it's wedding season. So I'm getting guys who are messaging me to get in shape, what to do. And then after you talk, like I mentioned before, it's like
you basically become a life coach because the talks become very intimate and emotional. And the guy just like,
Mm,
I could have got married 3 years ago if it wasn't for the family wanting XYZ from me,
yeah.
or even my family wanting stuff from her, and all this
Mm,
stuff. It just delays marriage even further and makes life so much harder. But also, it's the idea that that thing that Allah made halal for you will have so much more blessings and barakah in it. It will be more enjoyable. But ultimately comes down to you controlling yourself before you get that wealth, love, children, anything, food,
mm,
the thing that even the meal that you so desperately wanted. If you go to the gym and then work out and you're hungry, anything will taste good. Like anything will
mm,
taste good. So the idea, but if you were to stuff yourself with your favorite treats and snacks and chocolate and not work out, you'll feel like rubbish. You'll get fat and you'll deteriorate your health. But if you do that sacrifice and go to the gym and work out, get in your steps every day, maybe some more cardio on top of that, when you finally have that first meal and the meal is clean, honestly, there's times where that chicken breast tastes like chocolate. Not legitimately like chocolate, but this joy that I get from eating that meal. Cause
mm,
it's not like bland chicken breast. We cook it well, garnish it, it tastes well, but it feels so much more rewarding. And that's the same,
mm,
I would say, with intimacy. It's like I'm pretty sure some people who finally get into marriage might even feel guilt. Like I finally got the girl, but I did all this before, and you might not even. Obviously, I want you to enjoy it, seek repentance from Allah, but maybe a part of you won't as much because you're still in that mindset of who you were before because of your guilt. You shouldn't be. You should repent and then get away from it. Now you're in the halal,
yeah.
but there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah, man. It's have you ever like given straight dawah or anything like that?
Street dawah, street
Or
dawah.
given
I've
dawah?
done mosque dawah.
You done most
I've
dawah?
given dawah.
Okay.
Yeah, in at university. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
mini debates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever like encounter any like they're like convinced, but they're like, but I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up like all the girls in my
Yeah.
in my in my in my phone, right? Or anything like that.
Oh,
Have you ever encountered that?
yeah. I had one guy who he actually kind of did become Muslim. He came and prayed with us.
Yeah.
So essentially a Muslim.
Yeah.
But he couldn't give up women to the extent, not pornography, but
Yeah.
his women.
Yeah.
Like when we would chill, he would be like some pretty girl would be sitting in the library. He'd
Yeah.
just go up and massage her and talk to her. Not like unconsensually. He would, yeah, he wouldn't just go up and grab her. But yeah, but he'd just be
Uh,
chilling and chatting with her. Then out of nowhere,
yeah.
he's like massaging her shoulders.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that ain't gonna cut it. No, we don't want to force him because the fact that he wanted to
Yeah.
come pray with us is a huge
Yeah,
thing.
that's a huge thing, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah, like get the
but
shahada, bro, and fix out everything
yeah,
else at the beginning.
but
I just kind of,
yeah,
I just brought that up because like, because I remember when I was like convinced, I'm like, Islam's the truth, but I'm like, man, like, what are we gonna do about the women thing? It's like,
yeah,
and then, um, like, and then you realize like, like Rebels and born Muslims, they have similar struggles, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, because I saw the Islamic kind of model for marriage, I'm thinking like, man, this is it. This is exactly the type of model that would kind of, this is a superior model, obviously because it's from Allah, but you're just seeing like the madness and hookup culture and everything like that. So I just assumed that like, first of all, that because it's in the scripture, like people are gonna make it really easy for people to get married. There's gonna be no issues, blah blah blah. And then like obviously now it's five years in, I know, or 6 years in almost. That's not the reality of the case. Like so I want to like definitely we can acknowledge that we've kind of created there's like a broader macro situation where it's making haram porn addiction easier to fall into. One is like technological advances and like we just got this device they can give it to you at any time. Two, like halal's been made harder for a number of reasons, and then there's the financial situation. So there's many things. Well, then there's also the kind of feminist movement. And then you got the red pill movement. So you're just creating. You got all the ingredients for someone to be if they're in a porn addiction, to like further that porn addiction, to be anti-marriage, to be anti-women, and to like have a dim view of the institution of marriage, nikah in general. And then that's just like, you're just pretty much just like putting the nails in the coffin there for that person to just like stay in that mind, in that space as someone addicted to pornography. And it was only like when I had this client and he was watching like all these like Fresh and Fit podcasts, like you're in Fresh and Fit, yeah. And I'm like, so you're watching like that podcast and like you got naked chicks on there, basically naked, right? And they also at the same time like feeding you like kind of negativity about women and marriage. And so like obviously that's just going to further your addiction, right? Because like ultimately, because like we said, like once there's obviously a series of things that you need to sort out, but ultimately once you've kind of addressed those issues, you want to be in a position where you're thinking positively about marriage and women, because you want to open the doors for marriage. And like without that, you've kind of closed that door. Then you're kind of closing the door on the halal means as well. So
Yeah.
they're being set up for failure in a way. So the more kind of red pill anti-women type of thing, then the more closer you are to just staying stuck.
Yeah. No man should watch that podcast. Any clips I see just make me depressed.
Yeah.
Like it generally, yeah, it just makes me depressed. In general, as a Muslim, you shouldn't be watching
As a
that
Muslim,
anyway,
yeah,
but it
exactly,
just makes me depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
just
but at the
makes me
same
lose
time,
hope.
yeah, at the same time, like those, a lot of the issues in modern, like they're real, right? The court system is real. You live in the West, like, but you can't. But no one goes into. You speak to married people. You speak to people, and they've been married 30, 40 years, whatever it is, 20 years. No one went into it thinking about divorce at the beginning as like that's going to be the outcome or likely outcome, or even they did data analysis. No one had that mindset when they got divorced. Otherwise, when they got married. Otherwise, no one would get married. Like, it's like, but now sometimes like we have too much information, have too much access to, so you just get turn yourself off the conversation before it even begins. And when
going into a marriage expecting divorce is actually a huge thing now. People are already prepared. They're prepared, especially, and I think it's even worse for women. No one should go and think about divorce, but when a woman goes in thinking about divorce, she will because majority of divorces are initiated by women now. But she goes in thinking that, well, it's fine, because if it doesn't work out, I'll find another, or technically I don't really need a man. And that's a horrible mindset. And if guys end up doing that more, well, then eventually you're going to end up to a point where everyone feels like you don't need each other. And essentially, you don't nowadays, which is horrible, because you can get your desires satisfied by pornography. You can pay people, which is surprising. I didn't realize how easy it was in the UK. After I just did my security license a while back, and that's what we were going through, prostitution. And it's illegal, but call girls are legal. So it's the same thing, but it's under the name of providing a service. And it's totally fine. You can, it's legal. And one of my trainers was like, yeah, I'm a security guard for call girls. I would drive them and drop them off to the guy's house. I'm like, dude, that you know what you're doing. He goes, yes, but no, because it's call girling. It's not prostitution. And it's totally fine. And same thing with women. Yeah. And with women too, there's all these different toys and stuff that you can use. You don't actually need anyone to satisfy your physical desires. And the rest, you just yourself. Like, if you're willing to not have kids, then you can live a whole life by yourself.
Yeah. So there's many dynamics at play that, there's many dynamics at play. And especially someone that's going through porn recovery, or they have porn addiction. Like these types of kind of mindset doesn't assist you, especially as a Muslim man, on the path to recovery. But yeah, man, I feel like we feel like we hit a lot of points.
Yeah.
And
So now that we've spoken about that, how would you define strength?
all right, I think I gave you the question. I didn't get to receive it. Like, yeah, I have to tie it. Has to be like tied to Iman, number one. But I think it was on the menu, so I'm kind of cheating here. But I don't think it was on the menu of options that you gave me. Is it? I don't think it is.
I mean,
So what were the
whatever
options?
you feel.
Yeah, has to be
Uh,
Iman, right? Because
yeah.
like we said, man, there's gonna be many things happening in life. Without Iman, like it's yeah, it's not pretty. Um, After that, man, definitely like emotional and mental strength, and yeah, physical strength as well. Because I feel like because if someone's kind of mentally tapped out or emotionally tapped out, they don't want to move or get fit.
Mm.
So I feel like that's why I kind of did it in that order. But then also, I've seen it where it's like they just do the physical and then it kind of facilitates the mental and emotional to work as well. So once again, man, it is kind of tailored to the individual, like where they're at.
Yeah.
Like for me, I've always had like this mindset that I'm a basketball for life, even though like I can't really play anymore due to injuries. But like that's just my kind of like deep identity. Like if I can't hoop well, then something's a bit off. So for me, like it's always going to be some element of physical attached to it. And I feel like you're probably the same way because
Yeah.
you're tied to the kind of resistance training and
Yeah.
stuff that you did in high school.
I think now I've come to understand that I don't give it any I don't have a ranking system anymore. Strength to me, it just the bit is just resilience. His
Yeah.
ability to be able to handle pressure and the quantity how much pressure you can handle, basically. Whether that's mental, physical, emotional, which one is most important? Right now, it doesn't matter to me because I think, like we spoke about, there's so many different examples of like the Terry Crews. He's already fit, but emotional trauma. Then the guy who has emotional trauma, but he's not fit, but when you tell him to go in shape, wow, it's like everything else is fixing. It's because it just depends on where your starting point is. And everyone needs to do a bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta.
Yeah, you gotta work out, and you've gotta then deal with your trauma through speech, whoever you need to talk to, and then you also need to figure out your trigger points, and you need to fix your iman because all of that comes down back to your iman, and I think beyond everything, character. Even though that's a mindset thing, I think character is more related to spiritual because we, as Muslims, our principles are derived from Quran. Like what is socially acceptable is whatever's in the Quran. If society says loving, like love is love, we say no. Love is a good thing, but we derive it and who we can love from the Quran first. So I think character for me and iman is obviously first, and in the same way how strength is important. But if you look at like the Battle of Badr, what was it? 313 approximately against 1,000? Or was it 1,000 or 10,000? The enemies on the Battle of Badr.
Do you want me to fact check for you?
Yeah, I don't want to. It's definitely 1,000. It wasn't 10,000. I don't want to make that mistake.
All right. No, you got it. All right, no one's fact checking.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, 1,000. Yeah, because I remember it was 3-1. So close enough. So 313 versus 1,000. But not just that. This is 313 Muslims who had no horses, very few cavalry, almost nothing. Some of them were almost naked. They just had enough to cover the satar. They didn't have any food to eat, so they're very weak and no weapons. Some of them literally came almost stripped naked, nothing in their hands. Some were barefoot. So they were weak physically and outmanned, outgunned, and they had less equipment. You can't win. You literally cannot win logically against 1,000 men who had who had cavalry, who had armor, and who were stronger and fitter because they ate. But they still were like, the Prophet ﷺ made a dua to Allah. If we lose here, Islam is dead. That was it. If we lose here, no one will ever follow Islam in this world. So Allah give us victory. And that is the thing, strength of character. Because these men, remember the Prophet ﷺ has complete trust in Allah. But all of these guys had to trust in him. They're not getting wahi, they're not getting revelation, they have no confirmation. They are all just there like, so we win or die. That's what I'm here for. I'm just here to win or die. Because if I die, I get shaheed. If I win, my family's safe and we will become Muslim. Great. But some of them are so weak. But why? Why are they there? Character. Like one of the weakest, Abdullah ibn Masud, the guy who's one of the greatest like muhaddith, one of the Sahaba has the most hadith. If you open up any, there's so many Abdullahs. But if it just says Abdullah in a hadith book, it's him. Because he's the OG Abdullah, he's the main one. He won't say his full name. But he was one of the skinniest and weakest of the Sahaba. Like to the point where he was climbing a tree, they saw his legs, you might have heard this, and then they laughed. The Sahaba laughed at his legs because they were so skinny. And the Prophet was like, why are you laughing? He goes, look at his legs. Then he said, these legs are like the mountains of Uhud on the Day of Judgment. Just because of how much good deeds he done. And this skinny guy was the one who killed Abu Jahl. And Abu Jahl had a similar physique to Umar radiallahu anh. And everyone knows Umar radiallahu anh. So in the Battle of Badr, he killed the Fir'aun of our Ummah. So when you think about it like that, outmanned 3-1, skinny, one of the weakest men, but he the greatest of character, greatest of courage. He was the one who killed the greatest enemy of Islam. There was 2 other guys who helped, so it was like a 2v1, and then they took him out, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud came and sliced his head. That's how it ended. Yeah, like he was on the ground, he stood over him and just went, and he beheaded him. But like that's the guy who got the finishing blow. Not the strongest Muslim physically, but the strongest Muslim character, yeah. And that's the most important thing, because as I've been doing security training, I realized size matters logically in a fight, but heart matters the most. Because there was a guy we had this giant dude, right? He came into training and he wasn't with me, he was with another group, and they were just telling us about this guy. They're like, when a fight kicks off in a bar or a pub, what do? The guy says, I go in the bathroom, I lock the door. He's a security officer. He's supposed to be protecting everyone. And he was the biggest guy there. He was a giant, muscular Jamaican guy.
Okay.
I'm 5'7", a small Bengali dude. He said because he's already a security officer, he says, I just go in the bathroom and lock the door.
All right.
What the hell? What's the
like,
point?
I don't get paid enough. Like, I ain't getting paid.
Yeah. But like, that's your job.
Okay.
But what happened to his muscles and his size and his height and the strength? No, he's mentally weak and he's not brave enough. His heart isn't there. His character. So I'm seeing that. I'm like, that's the biggest thing I take now from all my experiences with people, meeting people who have gone into scraps and fights, security officers, and also the guys I see at the gym. Some of the biggest guys are some of the friendliest guys, and actually some of the softest guys, which is very interesting. But you can tell which of the biggest guys have gone through a lot of hardship in their life and which ones haven't, because they're not arrogant. So I think more than anything, strength of character is how I define strength now, and resilience. And again, that comes down to mental fortitude. To me, physical fitness is just an important thing, and that's it. Like, I merge them all together. Mental health, physical health, spiritual health, but spiritual and character to me now is like the forefront of everything.
Yeah, resilience is, that is the topic. That is the main centerpiece, I feel like, especially now, is resilience. Maybe it has always been. I just find that is what's kind of missing. And we spoke about kind of the millennials, how they were preset to kind of have self-esteem as like the centerpiece thing that to be reinforced. But you could argue like that was at the expense of like resilience. And that's when, like we said, inevitably when life's events happens, your ability to kind of to cope and deal with that, your resilience, that really does decide a lot of the actions that you end up taking, and it can put you in a worse position, or in a good position because you've weathered the storm, and that's kind of reinforced your confidence and ability to have sabr. Your trust in Allah gets strengthened. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, but I felt like you did a good job in kind of explaining, what, because your YouTube channel is Sunnah Strength, like how you kind of defined and merged that. I felt like you did a good job there. I don't know if you wanted to further elaborate on your kind of
Yeah,
framework of Sunnah
I
strength.
mean that's kind of it, because Sunnah strength was supposed to be physical fitness and spiritual, just merging the two together. Overall, how the Sunnah can be applied to the science of building strength.
Hmm.
That's why it was. And I think as the years go by on this channel, and the more people I meet talking to you and other people, I realize um, the foundation of everything has to go back to mental strength, not actually physical. So as much as I teach people about the best workout plan, diet plan, meal plan, how to build strength and muscle in different ways, I think a lot of the foundation of my channel is about iman, is about character, and that's where the sunnah in Sunnah strength comes in.
Yeah, mashallah. Man, Jazakallah khair for another episode. Inshallah, the listeners have enjoyed.
Iyakum.
And yeah, maybe we can, maybe it's a good spot to leave it here. And yeah, next episode we'll tackle something that's equally, if not more, important. All right, assalamu
Okay,
alaikum.
inshallah. Wa alaikum salam.